He was charming, he was intelligent, and he was a killer hiding in plain sight. Today we peel back the mask of one of America's most infamous monsters, Ted Bundy. Welcome to Murder Most Brewed, where true crime stories steep slowly, and the darker truths always rise to the surface. I'm your host, Misty, and today, for our very first episode, we begin with a name that still chills the blood nearly 50 years later, Ted Bundy. A man whose charm was a mask, whose smile hid a hunger, a man who left a trail of broken lives across the country, and who forced America to see evil in a new way. But to understand Ted Bundy, we have to go back to where it all began. Born Theodore Robert Cowell in 1946, Bundy grew up in a web of lies, raised believing his grandparents were his parents and that his biological mother was his sister. Bundy's early life was marked by confusion, secrets, and deep feelings of rejection. Despite these beginnings, Bundy seemed outwardly ordinary. Bright, polite, handsome. He attended college, studied psychology, and even worked at a suicide prevention hotline, saving lives by day while harboring unspeakable fantasies by night. In early 1970s, something inside Ted Bundy snapped, and the transformation from promising young man to predatory killer began. In early 1974, the peaceful corners of Washington state began to darken with fear. Young women, students, were vanishing without a trace, no signs of a struggle, no witnesses. It was as if they had simply been swallowed by the earth. January 4th, Linda Ann Healy, a 20-year-old University of Washington student, vanished from her basement bedroom. Her bed was neatly made, except for a streak of blood on the pillow. Her clothes were missing. So was Linda. It would be months before anyone found a clue, and by then, Bundy had already moved on to his next victim. Bundy's methods were simple and chillingly effective. He wore a fake cast or used crutches, pretending to struggle with books or packages. He'd ask a young woman for help, loading something into his car, usually a tan Volkswagen Beetle, and once close enough, the mask would slip. A blow to the head, a swift push into the car. In mere moments, the charming stranger transformed into a predator. Throughout the spring and summer of 1974, fear gripped the Pacific Northwest. Women disappeared from college campuses, parks, even in broad daylight. No one felt safe, and still, Bundy smiled, studied, dated, living a double life so seamlessly that even those closest to him suspected nothing. July 14th, 1974, Lake Sammamish State Park in Washington. A sunlit Sunday, families picnicking, friends swimming, couples walking hand in hand. Amid the crowd, a young man moved from woman to woman, asking for help loading a sailboat into his car. His arm in a plaster cast, his voice soft, almost bashful. Some declined, some agreed, and then backed away, their instincts whispering that something wasn't right. Two women, Janice Ott and Denise Naslund, were not so lucky. Both disappeared that day, both lured by a man who introduced himself casually as Ted. Witnesses remembered the tan Volkswagen, the cast, the charm. For the first time, police had a name, a description, a pattern. But Ted Bundy wasn't finished. Fearing exposure, Bundy fled Washington and moved south to Utah, enrolling in law school. There, the killings resumed. Women continued to vanish, and the threads connecting the cases began to tighten. In 1975, a young woman named Carol DeRange was approached by a man claiming to be a police officer. He lured her into his car, but she fought back, escaping with her life. Her bravery gave police their first solid lead. Not long after, during a routine traffic stop, a Utah Highway Patrol officer pulled over a tan Volkswagen Beetle. Inside, a mask, handcuffs, a crowbar, and rope. But Bundy smiled and claimed that they were for emergencies. This time, the charm failed him. Ted Bundy was arrested, and slowly, the horrifying truth began to surface. But before Bundy faced justice, investigators and psychologists tried to understand the man behind the mask. Ted Bundy was diagnosed as a classic sociopath, but the label hardly captured the complexity. Bundy didn't feel guilt. He didn't feel remorse. He mimicked emotions, studied people the way a predator studies prey. Every interaction was a performance. Bundy's desperation for approval ran side by side with his utter disregard for life. He wanted to be admired, respected, even loved, even as he left death in his wake. His crimes weren't crimes of passion. They were acts of control, domination, and annihilation. And so, the smiling law student, the attentive boyfriend, the friendly neighbor, was nothing more than a hollow shell, carefully crafted here to lure the unsuspecting. Facing mounting murder charges in Colorado, Bundy knew time was running out. In 1977, while at the Aspen courthouse, Bundy escaped, leaping from a second-story window into the mountains. He survived on the run for 6 days before being recaptured. But he wasn't finished. Later that year, Bundy escaped again, cutting a hole in his cell ceiling and slipping out under the cover of night. By the time authorities realized he was gone, Bundy had already made his way to Florida. Florida would see Bundy's most savage acts yet. On January 15, 1978, Bundy broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. In just 15 minutes, he attacked 4 young women. Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy were bludgeoned and strangled to death. 2 others survived brutal beatings. He left behind a critical mistake, a deep bite mark on Lisa Levy's body. Forensic evidence that would later link Bundy definitively to the crime. Just weeks later, Bundy abducted and murdered 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. Her body would be found weeks later, discarded and brutalized. By February, Bundy's luck ran out for the final time. Pulled over by a sharp-eyed officer, he was arrested, and this time he would never see freedom again. Ted Bundy's trial for the Chi Omega murders was a media spectacle, one of the first nationally televised trials in U.S. history. Bundy, ever the narcissist, chose to represent himself, turning the courtroom into a stage. He smiled for the cameras, cross-examined witnesses, even proposed to his girlfriend in open court. But the evidence was undeniable. Bundy's bite matched the mark left on Lisa Levy's body. Witnesses placed him at the scene. On July 24, 1979, Ted Bundy was found guilty. He was sentenced to death. Facing the electric chair, Bundy began to talk. But even his confessions were a game. Over hours of interviews, Bundy confessed to over 30 murders spanning Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, Idaho, and Florida. But he remained vague, manipulating the truth, hinting that there were many more victims, lives erased, forgotten, secrets he took to the grave. Many of those victims were never found, their names and faces lost to history. January 24, 1989, at Florida State Prison, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair. Outside the prison gates, a crowd gathered, some holding signs, some cheering, some simply watching, needing to see the end of a man who embodied their worst fears. Bundy's death closed the chapter, but this story and the terror he unleashed left a permanent mark on America. His crimes reshaped how we think about predators. They helped birth modern criminal profiling. They fueled a national obsession with true crime that still echoes in our culture today. Bundy taught us that evil could be intelligent, educated, even handsome, that it could wear the face of someone you trust without a second thought. Ted Bundy forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth, that evil isn't always obvious. It doesn't always announce itself with wide eyes and snarling rage. Sometimes it's soft-spoken. Sometimes it's handsome. Sometimes it wears a suit, offers a charming smile, and holds open the door. Bundy wasn't just a murderer. He was a master of illusion, blending into the world so perfectly that few ever saw the monster until it was too late. He reminds us that monsters we fear most don't live under our beds. They walk among us. They borrow our trust. They smile when they shake our hand. And sometimes they look just like someone we thought we knew. Thank you for joining me for the first episode of Murder Most Brewed. If you enjoyed today's deep dive into darkness, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and meet me back here for another freshly brewed tale of true crime. Until next time, stay cautious, stay curious, and remember, not every smile is innocent.